Hello, I'm inside today, not in my shed studio. I just thought I would talk to you about making art and carrying on working in the face of lowered capacity, changed circumstances. And the reason I've started thinking about this is because summer holidays are approaching in the UK, and that for me is a time where suddenly family and childcare just kind of takes over. And although I've kind of come to accept that I'm going to be able to do a lot less work, I do like to do some artwork and I don't want to let it go completely. And I know that life often throws quite a few curveballs in the way of people making art. And doing what they want to do and need to do. So here are just a few of my tips to show you how you can adjust, how you can adapt to lowered capacity and still get the creative juices flowing. So first up is acceptance. Accepting the circumstances you're in. And I know it's difficult to think of this sometimes, but sometimes it can be a blessing. You get very efficient with your time. You change the way you work when you have lower time and lower capacity. And it might be that you've been spending lots of time making massive canvases, grappling with really difficult problems. And it might be that now you have to look at working a bit smaller, faster, freer. You might come up with ways of working and things that you make that you never would have before. So don't look at it as something to be railed against. You know, you can use this as a useful constraint that you can work with, and you never know, you might end up with a way of working that's even better than what you used to do. And then time is the next thing to think about. Now, I'm very used to blocking out maybe 2 or 3 hours at a time to be in my studio that's outside of my home or even inside my home. And I just can't do that when I'm down on time. So often it's a 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, maybe half an hour if I'm lucky. And you can't really plan that into your week, or it can be quite difficult to plan into your week. But if you have 15 minutes, go and do something. It really is worth it. It might be one mark that you make. Those marks add up. So you might not be able to put it into your diary, you might not be able to plan it in, but you can do small spurts of, just a mark or just one little thing you can go and do. So sometimes doing things in very short periods of time, so quick spurts every now and then, can actually free you up. It stops you thinking too much. And it also means that you go away and you come back again and you see whatever you've done with fresh eyes rather than staring at something for ages. So it can be a really good way to work, a really nice way to work. The other thing you can do is look at how you spend your time right now. So there's probably lots of things in there that you don't need to do or you don't have to prioritize. When you're kind of in what I call maybe survival mode, cut it right down to the basics. If you feel that you need to be creative in some way to get through your day or your week, that's fine. Prioritize it. Deprioritize some other things. And that might be housework. That might be that you have to have a slightly higher tolerance of tidiness. And that's okay. Go through your week and see what you can cut out or delegate to other people or postpone or just put on the back burner. So the other thing is, look at the time that you do have. You might have some time first thing in the morning before your day starts. You might have lunchtime. You could maybe look at art books. You might have time in the evening. So in the UK and Northern Europe, we have lovely long light evenings in the summertime. So I've been using that just maybe an hour sometimes. I can manage that, or half an hour, and it's still light enough to work. So look at the little tiny amounts of time around your day that you might be able to fit some creativity in. And then space is the next thing. So if you want to carry on making art and being creative, you will need some form of space. So even if that's just a tiny corner, I mean, I know people that have a small, very small chest of drawers in their hallway. And whenever they have a little bit of time, they've got all their jewellery making stuff in there, they take it out and they work on the top of the little chest in the hallway. It might be a corner of a bedroom, a spare bedroom. It might be a shed or a ready-made studio if you have one, and that's brilliant. I have a small 8 foot by 8 foot studio, as you might know. It's in the back garden. It was a real lifesaver when lockdown happened because I could just go out for 15-20 minutes, like I say, and then I could come back in again. And I wasn't far away from my daughter, so she could get me if she needed me. And that was just so useful. But the other thing I would say about space is, if you're going to have a small space nearby or in your home, then you will need to keep it fairly tidy. You need to be a little bit disciplined. And that's because you don't want to spend your 10, 15, 20 minutes just tidying up or just trying to find the things that you need to make the artwork. So when you have finished, just put things away, just clear away just a little bit so that you know what you're doing when you come back in. And also, if you're working on a piece, have it ready, get atable, or on in front of you for when you walk in, so that you don't spend any time deciding what you need to do or finding what you need to do it, or tidying for that matter. The next thing you might need to adapt is the kind of art that you make and the materials that you use. So if you're used to making, really big canvases, great big trolleys full of paint, you might need to adapt that or change it. So it might be that you work on paper, which can be really freeing actually. It makes you a lot less precious and a lot looser. It might be that you only work with 3 or 4 colours. You really constrain yourself with the colours. It might be that if you can't go to a print studio, you print at home. There are ways of doing that. A little plug for my video courses here. I make video courses where you can print at home, and it's a brilliant thing to do. There are more constraints, but within those constraints, you can make some really brilliant art, and it can be a very freeing thing to do because you're not constantly making decisions all the time. So you have to use a certain amount of colours, you have to use certain materials. So think about how you might adapt what you make, and it might be that you make lots of smaller things, and you may well find that the constraints actually make you possibly make better art, or certainly make you make art in a way that you'd never thought about before, and that's never a bad thing. And also, I would say that repetition of things, repetition of colour and form and motifs and technique actually can be a really good thing. I mean, I've done the 100-day project a couple of times now, and that is where you do something for about 10 minutes each day. It tends to be you're doing very similar things each day, but what you find is you really develop. You develop your technique, you develop your style, you learn what you like, and it can be a really good exercise to do. So even if you only had 10 minutes each day and you decided to make a small collage or make one mark on a piece of paper, those will add up, and you will find that you end up with motifs, things that you get really good at, maybe even a series of work if you can do that kind of thing. So don't rail against the constraints, enjoy them, work within them, and they can produce really good results. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is pre-planning. So if you are lucky enough to know that you're going to have lowered capacity, it's not a sudden thing, it's coming upon you and you can plan maybe a few weeks ahead, then do put pieces of work aside that you maybe can work on at home, or you can finish at home. There might be smaller pieces, there might be things on paper that you know that you're going to be able to bring home, or just have on the dining room table and work on there. So put those aside and leave them for when you have lowered capacity, when you only have 15 or 20 minutes. It might be something like making lots of collage papers, ready to make lots of little collages, and you just have a big pile of really nice papers that you've either printed or painted on or drawn on, or whatever it is. It means you cut out all the decision making when you first come to sit down and make. You just have a pile of stuff, you have a piece of paper, and you just go for it. No decision making, just play. So things like that can be really useful to do. The other thing that I do is I print lots at the print studio with a printing press in the weeks beforehand. I don't touch them, I just leave them in a drawer, and they're put aside ready for me being able to take them out for 20 minutes, looking at them, drawing into them, maybe putting one mark onto them, and I've got that pile again ready. No decision making, it's just ready to go, and I've got that pile of things that I know I want to work on. So you can do things like that before you begin your period of less time and less capacity. So I hope that's been useful. These are great things to think about. It doesn't mean that you have to stop making art just because you're ill or you're caring for somebody or you're doing lots of childcare or whatever it might be. You can keep going. It's just a matter of adapting and still having fun.